Okay, so you're all welcome once again. And while the class is going on, if you have any questions, you can type in the chat or you can just raise your hand. So I will just indicate by raising your hand. So on a brief recap on our previous class, we introduced NestJS. We looked at things like controllers, services, middlewares, and how to set up a NestJS app. We also discussed about the whole NestJS architecture. So today we'll be building our Casey Notes app using NestJS. And we'll start with the setup and then followed by authentication. So under setup, we'll create our app, we'll install the required packages, and then we'll set up Prisma. Okay, so how do we begin? First of all, we drop into our terminal, clear our terminal, zoom in. Okay, I think that is enough. And then change directory to, okay, just change directory to the root. And then we'll create another directory of 11. Then we say nest KC notes, like this. Then we change our directory into the next KC notes. Okay, 11 cd 11 nest. So we are in our directory right now. So if we ls, if we list the items in our current directory, we see nothing. So we start by scaffolding our app. So how do we do that? We simply say nest new, and then we don't give this app a name. We already have a name here. So we say create this app in our current directory. That's the dot, and then we hit enter. So yes, we're using npm. Okay, so the app is being created. So and every other thing is being installed. Yes, we have our app right here, and every other thing is being installed. So we give it a little time to finish the installation. Okay, so let's decide the architecture of application. Our app has, let's say it has two basic services, the authentication service and the note service. So basically we have these two services in our NestJS app, and then we'll have basically two controllers. So one controller for authentication and another controller for notes. And then we have a service for authentication and another service for notes. Okay, so why this is still installing, it's taking time. Why is it taking much time? Next. Okay, so when it's done installing, we install the packages we need, the third-party packages we need in our app. Basically, we need passport JWT and its types. We also need Nest JWT. We need Prisma and Prisma client. We need bcrypt.js. We also need class validator for input validation. We need JSON web token, which is the main JWT. Okay, so then we need passport itself for authentication. We need what else? I think that's all we need in our project. So I think it's done installing. So let's jump and then install the required packages. Okay, so in our terminal here, let's clear our terminal. Then let's look at the source folder. In our source folder here, we have a app controller, app service. Let's first of all start our app and ensure it's running the way it's supposed to. npm start, npm start dev. Let me look at the command again. npm start dev, yes. npm start dev. Okay, npm run start dev. Starting compilation in watch mode. Okay. And let's get back to let's see if it's working as expected. Localhost 3000. Okay, so our app is working as expected. So let's stop our app and then install the required packages. Okay, let's start by installing what do we need? Let's start by installing Prisma as a development dependency. So npm i-d Prisma. And what else? We need bcrypt types slash bcrypt. We also need bcrypt.js types like bcrypt.js, and then we need types passport jwt at types slash passport jwt. We also need no other development dependency. I think that's all for development dependencies. Okay, then we hit enter. While this is still installing, we look at our main. We want to use the Express.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse
Yeah,
me, sir.
Bayode, go ahead.
I'm so sorry for cutting you short. I've been raising my hand since you didn't see me. So I have a question, sir. Yesterday's on Tuesday, the class we had on Tuesday, I was trying to write the code myself from scratch. So when I created the controller for the note, automatically it got created just like you did, and I was having an error. Everything is coming with a red ink, and I'm saying replace CR. We delete CR from ESLint printer. I don't understand what's going on.
Did you correctly set up your ESLint formatter?
Just like you did yesterday. Sorry, on Tuesday I did.
Okay, let me just show you something very quickly.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Now, as you can see, look at the settings. When I click on the settings, I go to look at the search bar, and then I search for, let me say JSON, and then I will scroll down. I have edit JSON, settings JSON. Now, if you look at my JSON, let me just draw this thing down a bit. If you look at my JSON file, you can see I have my Prisma formatter here correctly set up. Now I have my editor dot format on save. Once I save a file, it is automatically formatted using where is it? Okay, can you see Preacher? I've set up Preacher to the default formatter for my text editor is Preacher. So once I save code, it is automatically formatted. But then for Prisma, I use the Prisma formatter to format my Prisma files. So if you set up a Preacher, anything you do, there are a kind of code standards, spaces, semicolons, and all of that in the set that are correctly set up in ESLint. And if you don't correctly follow this pattern, ESLint will throw errors. So if you set up your pretter will automatically follow. Look at the pretter file here. So if you correctly set up your pretter, make sure the settings in your pretter and the ones here are almost the same. Just set up your pretter to format, to save on, to automatically format on C. Once you save your file, pretter will take care of formatting your code so that it matches the rules specified in this ESLint RCJS file here.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Okay, so moving on, we've installed the the development dependencies, and then right now we install the rest of the dependencies. So we need Prisma clients. We need also BigCrypt.js. So npm I at Prisma /clients, and then BigCrypt.js. We also need passport. We also need class validator. Okay, so what else do we need? Passport. We need also add nest slash passport. I think it's nest slash passport. And that's all. So hit enter. So we can install all of these dependencies.
Sir, the class validator is not.
Okay. So basically this will fail.
Let
Let me
me
just
see.
cancel. Yeah. Have class validator. This is not correct. At NestJS. Okay, at NestJS / JWT. And then at NestJS / passports. Okay. So basically, hopefully this should okay. So we've installed all the dependencies we need, almost all, if not all. Okay, so if you come over to dependencies, we have all of these. And the dev dependencies we have, okay, that's great. Okay. So moving on, we create service, which is Prisma. Because if you want to create a service with controllers, we basically say NestG, that is net generate module. Is it a module? Or let's generate module. Then we say Prisma. Prisma, and we have Prisma module. So what else do we need? We need service as well. So we say, let's play it and say next generate service Prisma. Okay, so now we have a Prisma module and the Prisma service. So what do we need to do inside? Okay, now the Prisma service is automatically added to our providers. Okay, so what do we need to do in our Prisma service? Okay, so it's already injectable, and then we need to import the Prisma clients. So import Prisma client from our Prisma/client. And then here we say extend. We extend the Prisma client. So basically, the Prisma service is inheriting from the Prisma client. So we inherit from the Prisma client. So say Prisma client. And then we'll say implement. We want to implement this interface on module inits. So this will be coming from what we want to say this is an async method on module inits. Okay, so we want to say once the module is initialized, we want to connect to our Prisma client. See this dot connect. This dot connect. So once the module is initialized, we want to connect to our Prisma client. And this is all we need to do right here. But then we learned about external modules and global modules. So, okay. So now we want to use our Prisma service in the auth service and also in the node service. So by the way, you can take down your hand, please. So what do you want to do? We want to, now it's in the providers, so we can basically use it in the Prisma client or service, anything inside of this module, we can use the Prisma service, but then we cannot use it outside of this module. So if you want to use it outside of this module, we'll come over here and then we'll say exports. And then inside of this export, we'll add Prisma, Prisma service. So now this is accessible outside of this Prisma module. Okay, so now we are done setting up Prisma. This is all we need to do. Now, if you want to stop your Prisma client, you can come here and say await on module. Let's just leave it that way, please. We are not disconnecting it. Let's assume it's a production app, and then our app will run continuously, so we don't need to disconnect our Prisma client anytime. Anytime. So we just leave it like this. We just connect it, and then module. So all we need to do now is implement the auth controllers and service and call our Prisma service inside of it. Okay, so basically here, this is a function. Okay, so we need to call it, so if not to get an error. So we're done setting up. Now we have a basic test here. And this is promise Prisma service. It should be defined, and it's checking if the service is defined. And if you run our test, it will pass because it is defined. Okay, so now we need to create the auth controller and service. So what we need to do is to say next generate controller for auth, because we're starting with the auth. And then we say next generate service for the auth as well. Okay, now we have, if you open the authentication folder, we have controller and then the auth service. Okay, so now we start with implementing the controllers in the authentication. So controllers for authentication and then the services for also authentication. But before we go on, we create a file here of a folder of DTO and another folder of interfaces like this. Okay, so now that we have this folder, in our auth controller, we already have this controller of auth. So we'll go ahead. Inside of the controllers, we have the sign up, the sign up route, which is a post route. This will be coming from the NestJS/common. Then we have sign up, so that if you visit /auth/sign up, we'll be able to sign up in our app. So now that we have this, we go ahead and implement the method. So async sign up. And for now, we don't have anything. Then we just return sign up. And now once I save my file, everything is automatically formatted. Now we have another method of this is also a post. And then we have sign in. This is, let's just copy this one here. Async sign up. Let's change to sign in, and then change this one to sign in. Now we have another one. Let's just copy this one, copy it, bring it over here, paste it. Let's change this one to me, the main route, and then change this one to get, because the main route is a get. Using the get request for the main route. Then change this one also to me. And then we'll come over here and change this to me. So we need the sign out route is not necessary, but we'll just leave it here for demonstration purposes. So we'll copy this one, bring it down here, paste it, and then change this one to sign out. Change this, the name here to sign out as well. And then say sign out like this. Okay, so now that we have controllers correctly set up, we will jump over to, we have not initialized Prisma. So npx Prisma init, and then we specify the data source provider to be SQLite, because we are using the SQLite database in our app. So we hit enter, and then this will be automatically generated for us. And now we have this Prisma folder here in the root of our project, and we also have an env file in the database, the path to our database specified inside. So we can go ahead and then do away with this comment. Do away with this comment, and then come to our Prisma schema, and then define our schema inside of it. So what do we need? So we say model. Here we want to model our user. So a user will have an ID of I think the ID will be of type string, and then it will be of an ID. And then the default value, we use CUID to generate our IDs for us. And then over here, we also have the user will have a username. It will be of type string, and it will be provided. There's no default value. User will also have a password, which will be of type string, and this will also be provided. And then what else will a user have? A user will also have created at, which will be a date time. The default value will be 9. And then the user will have updated at, which will also be a date time, and it will be updated at. Okay, so what else will a user have? A user will have notes. And then this note will be of notes. A user can have many notes, but a note can only have one user. So it's time to model this note. So if you come over here and then we model our note, let's just copy every other thing in here. Let's just copy the ID, copy this, paste it here, and then remove the username and the password, leaving the ID updated at and created at. So once I save this file, you can see we have the user here, and then the user ID. So this is not optional. Let's not make it optional. Let's just remove this. Oops. remove this one and this one. Okay, so now we have, this is a many to one mapping. A user can have many nodes, but a node can have only one user. Okay, so basically, we've connected a node to users. If a user creates any node, the node will go to the node table with the user's ID. This is a user, not a user. Okay, so this is basically it. So once we've generated this, you can come over here and say APX Prisma generates. You can generate and then migrate also. Okay, now we generate the Prisma client. We want to generate our Prisma client. Okay, so now it is generated. Now we can say npx Prisma migrate div, and the name will be init because we've just initialized it, and this is the first migration. So we hit enter. Okay, so now we have our migrations, our database. The tables have been created in our database and the rows and everything. So if you open our migrations, then we can see these migrations was migration SQL. Look at the table, the user table has been created with the username, password created, updated, and the rest of it. So we have a create the table here, the note over to. Now we've generated our Prisma clients with our tables all created. Okay, so now it's time to jump to the user service and then, but before we jump to the user service, our app is not yet standard, it's not yet structured. So we'll come over here, we'll do away with this app controller spec, we'll delete it, we don't need it. We'll also delete it, app controller TS, we don't need it. We'll also delete app service, we don't need this as well. But we need the app module because this is the root module where all this will be imported. So we remove this, remove that one as well, then remove them here. We don't need the app controller, we don't need the app service. Okay, so now if you go back to our auth service, there is a module. Okay, we didn't generate the module. So let's clear our terminal. Let's say next generate module, and then we say auth. So this will be automatically created for us here. Okay, so if you open this, you see that everything in here is empty. Okay, so now that everything is empty, we will need to, inside our auth, we need to bring in things and then re-export things so that we can use this module in our app module. So we already have the imports, we already have the Prisma module and then the auth module here. So we can go ahead and then remove this auth controller and the auth service, also remove them here. So as already we have the auth module. So we'll come back to the auth module. And inside of this auth module, we have our controllers. And inside of these controllers, we have our auth controller. Where is the auth controller? We have our auth controller here. And we also need providers. And inside of the providers is where our service will go. We have our auth service. This is not an object, but an array. Auth service. Where is the auth service? Here it is. Okay, our auth service, not auth services. Our auth service. They will save our file. Everything is automatically formatted. Okay, and then we need, we re-exported the Prisma module. Here, we can import the Prisma module. We re-exported this, everything in the Prisma module. So we can import the Prisma module in here in our auth module. You will see imports. We want to import the Prisma module and then use it. So import, and then we say, okay, add the comma first, and then we come see Prisma module. So now we can be able to use our the Prisma module in our auth module. So how do we use this? Okay. Now everything is set up as it should. Now if you go back to the auth module, we have our Prisma module, we have our auth module. Okay, So I think this is all we need. Our app module here contains everything we need. Okay. Now, also, Prisma service, Prisma module, Prisma service, export Prisma service. Okay. So in order to make it global, we can even see, okay, that's just it, basically it. So now let's jump into implementing our auth service. So our auth service here is empty. So what do we need? What are the methods? We have in our auth controllers, we have sign up, sign in, and sign out. Okay, so in our auth service, what you will do is we also have the same methods: sign up, sign in, and sign out. Okay, so let's just jump into implementing these things already. So now this is already injectable, so we can inject it in our auth controller and then basically use it. So let's just jump into implementing this method. Okay, so let's call the constructor, and the constructor is, this is here where we call our Prisma service. We say private, because we want this to be private, and we'll say Prisma. This will be Prisma service, like this. So we now have our Prisma service. Okay. Now going on, we have 4 methods. We have async, sign up, return sign up. And then let's just copy this, then paste it into about 4 places. We have sign in, we have the main route here, and the sign out. We don't even need the sign out here because already it's doing a job up there. So let's just remove the sign out. We don't need this. Save, and it's automatically formatted. Okay, so I guess everything is set up as it should. But then we also need JWT service, and the JWT service will be coming from, we can also say here, private JWT, then we can say JWT service, which is coming from nest/JWT. So this is taken care of. And we also need another implementation for this to work. Implement our DTO and then interfaces. Okay, now we need a DTO. We have, the first one will be create user.dto.ts, or let's say sign in user. Sign in user.dts.ts. So what do we need in this? Okay, we need to create so I said DT, not DTS, DTO, please. Sorry. Okay, we need to create a DTO for our sign up. Basically, we can use this in our sign up and then sign in because it's basically the same thing. Okay, so sign up user, okay, this is sign up DTO, not sign up user, sign up DTO. And in here, we have username of type string and password of type string. Okay, so let's come up here and see add the string, because this is a string. We want this to be of type string. And we also want it not to be empty. It's not empty. We don't want it to be empty. This is for validation purposes, so that if you send in an empty username, you get an error. So we have another one here. Let's just copy this one here. Bring it in here. And then for the password, we want it to have a minimum length of 6. So we say at min length, and then we say 6 like this. Okay, so we're done with this one, the sign up DTO. Okay, so now that we are done with the sign up DTO, we can go and implement other things. Okay, so we have to implement the JWT strategy. And what else do we need? Okay, first of all, the JWT strategy, but that is for the main route. So before we implement JWT strategy, let's first of all implement our service, our sign up and sign in services first. Okay, so in our this is our auth service. Here is our auth service. So what do we need in our sign up method? Okay, basically what we need here is the user. So the structure of the user will be the sign up DTO, which is coming from the DTO slice, sign up DTO. Okay, so this will basically be the structure. And if you hover over this, okay, if you hover over user is declared but not used. So this will mark this as async. So what is this returning? It will return a token of string. It will return a promise. This is a promise, and it will return a token, and a token of type string, like this. Okay, so let's start implementing the logic. So first of all, check for an existing user. So we see existing user is equal to await Prisma this Prisma user find unique. It should be find unique, but this will throw us an error, and then we see where we see username, so user.username like this. But we're getting an error here. What is it saying? Okay. And then we also username is not assignable to type and then the ID is missing. Okay, the reason why we're getting this error here is because the ID, we didn't mark the ID as unique. Now, if you come over to Prisma, come over to schema.prisma and then mark this username as unique, you want it to be a unique value, like just like the ID. And then this time around, you also have to say npx migrate, npx prisma migrate, and this time around, you see add unique, it's a unique constraint to the username, just like this, and then you hit enter. So yes, so we now have another migration in our database, and if you open this one, then you can see create unique index, username key, username. Okay, so we've added that to our database. Now we can come over to this one, and then we no longer have that error. Okay, so what's now that we're checking for the user in our database, if this user already exists, so if existing user, what do we want to do? We want to throw a new bad request exception. And inside of this bad request exception, maybe we can see user with username, and then we can see this. We can basically see username. You can see already exists like this. So if a user already signed up with that username, we can basically see user with username, this username already exists. And then we can see, but if there's no user with that username, we already handled in our DTO, we already handled the validation, the input validation. So all we need to do, we don't need to handle any input validation here. We just see const password hash. We say const password hash is equal to, and then this is where password hashing comes in. So we import bcrypt. Or import, if you say import bcrypt from bcrypt.js. Now, if you use this thing like this, you likely get an error. Say await the password like this. And then it needs also a sort. So you can see, you can basically see salt is equal to 10 rounds of salt, and then you can come over here and say salt like this. And now bcrypt is happy. So this, we now have our password hash. We've hashed our password. So it's time to create our user in the database. So you come over here and see const created user is equal to await this Prisma user creates, and then inside here we want to pass in the data, but then we have data. So inside of this data, if you can check our schema here, we have password, not hashed password. So if you come over here, you just pass in the user, the whole of the user like this. So the user is the password and the username, but you don't want to pass in the raw username. You're passing in the hashed password. So you change the password to hashed password. Is it password hash? Okay, password hash like this. Okay, so now we've created our user in the database. So what next do we need to do? Then we need to sign a token. Okay, so how do we sign this token? We already have JWT. So we say return this, return a token. Then we say this token is basically, oh, not inside of this, outside. Remove this one, place it here, and then return the token. And then this token is to sign, so this JWT sign. Okay, so you want to sign a user, and then you say ID created user.id. Okay, so now I think should have a closing. Okay, so now that we've created the user, these are the steps. The first thing here, which if the user already exists, and if the user already exists, we throw a bad request exception. And you know, this has a status code of 400. And then together with this message, and then the sort here, we hash this password with a sort of 10 rounds. We also create this user in our database with the password hash, and then we sign a token with the user ID we just created in our database. Okay, so this is basically it for this one here. Okay, but this will not work because we don't have a secret, and we don't, as you can see, we're just using this JWT here to sign. We don't set up any secret or anything. So we'll come over to env, our env file, and in our env file, we see JWT secret is equal to KC node test secret, or you can write any gibberish in there that you want. Okay, so now that we've set the secret, it's time to basically set JWT. Now, if you come to the Nest has handled this for us, and it's basically easy for us to set up things. So we also need the passport module. Well, so let's just include the passport module here. Passport module. In our imports, we are importing the passport module because this passport module is coming from NestJS passport. They've already built this module for us. It's just for us to import and then use it. So we're importing it in this module so as we can go ahead and then use it. So we have the JWT module as well. We can say JWT module. But we need to register it, and this will take an object. So this object, you see, the secret here will be process env, and then we have JWT secret. The secret we just set in this env file. Let's check again. It's JWT secret. So we have our app module. So here is our JWT secret. So the next thing here is sign options. We also pass the sign options, and inside of these sign options we have expires in, then we'll see 7 days. So while you are signed in our app, you will log out after every 7 days. You automatically logged out because your token will expire. Okay, we can, it depends on the security of your app. You can set this to basically anything. But in our app, we're just setting it to 7 days. Okay, so now let's clear our terminal. We've implemented our sign up. So it's time to bring in this into our app controller and then implement it inside our app controller. Okay, so in our app controller, when the user signs up, we are creating a user. So we say HTTP code of 201. Yes, we send back a HTTP code of 201, and then we are expecting a body. And here the body, we're using the body directive, and then this body here is a user. So this user is the sign in DTO, sign in, this sign up DTO. So what will this return? This will return a promise of token, which is a string. It will return a promise token, which is a type of string. Okay, now that we've, this is our argument. The argument in this method, we're expecting a body with this DTO, and then this method will return a promise of token. So now that we have this token, we now create a constructor that we can inject our auth service. We have this constructor here, and then in here we can say private auth service, and then we can say it is of auth service. What is the auth service? Auth service like this. Okay, so now that we have our auth service, we can go ahead. We can say private read only. No mutation, we can only read. And then in here we can say, okay, what are we returning? We will return, we will await auth service dot sign up, and then what do we pass? We pass in the user. This is simply all we need. Oh, not here. Bring it up here, sign up. Okay. And we brought in things wrongly, not here. Just bring it here. Okay, like this. Then in here, this is still the same thing. Sign will also return a token, but then let's change it to sign in and then leave it like that. Okay, but then the sign is not expecting anything, but we're passing in an argument, so it's throwing an error. Okay, so let's just see some. Token. Then we can see some. Since the token is a string, some. And then the error will go away. And then here we can use ESLint to disable this error as well. That's great. So now that we have this sign up implemented, as you can see, auth service, this sign up method on the auth service is expecting a user, and then we are passing in a user. That's great. So now let's start our app and test. npm run start there. Okay, so our app is running as, let's open up Postman. Let's create a new request here. And this is say localhost. Localhost 3000/auth/sign up. And then this is a post request, and it also needs a body. We'll come over to raw, and this is already JSON. Let's just drag this down a bit, and then we pass in the body of username of, let me see, Crystal, and the password should be of, let me just put in my name, and let's send this request. Internet server error. Okay, let's see the error we've got. Okay, cannot read exactly what I was expecting. Cannot read properties of undefined hash. Okay, so now let's go back to our auth controller. In our auth controller, we are not auth controller, auth service. So in our auth service, we are importing bcrypt like this, and then we're getting an error. So in order to do away with this error, you say import everything as bcrypt. We're importing everything from bcrypt as bcrypt. Okay, so now if you come over here and then send this again, and then we have our token. Okay, so now if you send this again, now we have user with username Crystal already exists, and this is a bad request with the status code of, let me zoom in a bit. Great. So this is a bad request with the status code of 400, and the message is user with username Crystal already exists. That's great. So let's do away with this, and then just send this like this. Okay, username is empty. Username here is empty. Okay. Basically, it's supposed to be validated. Okay. Okay. Password, 3 characters. User with, okay. Stop. Okay. Okay, now with the validation is not working, but then we'll work on that. Okay, for now, Crystal says to, and then we have username with Crystal already exists. Okay, so this is working as expected. Now it's time to implement the sign in. So in the sign in, we'll first of all head over to, okay, the service. This sign in is as well. Let's just copy this. It's expecting a user, and it's returning also a token. So let's just copy it and then bring it over here. And let's change this one to sign in like this. So this is also a sign up DTO. We'll use the sign up DTO because it also has the same structure. Okay, so how do we go about it? So first of all, check if the user is in our database. And if the user is not in our database, we then return an error to the person trying to sign in our app. That, okay, you are trying to sign in, but then there's no this particular user in our database. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, first of all, you see existing user. Okay, let's just come over here and then basically copy this one, and then paste it in here like this. But this time around, we do something like this. If there's no user in our database, we will say we throw a new bad request exception with invalid credentials like this. But if there's a user, then we check for the password. We check for the correct password. So if there's a user, we see correct password is equal to bcrypt compare. So this is an asynchronous method. So it's await bcrypt dot compare. So now we want to compare the incoming password, that is a user password with the password hash, which is the existing user password, existing user password. So we save this and it will be formatted. So now we want to check if the password is correct. Now, if the password is not correct, let's just copy this, bring it over here. And then if the password is not correct, if there's no correct password, and then we see invalid credentials as well, because we are trying to sign in with invalid credentials. But if the password is correct, let's sign a token and then send it to the client. It's a token. Now is this JWT, we say sign, and then we say ID. You want to sign a token with the user's ID, so existing user dot ID, like this. This is great. So now we've signed and then we've sent to the user. So now we head back to the controllers, and in the controllers, we do away with this error. And then all we need to do is we copy this, bring it down here, and then we say await alt service sign in user, and then we don't have any error because it's expecting the user and we've sent the user to it. This time around, the default HTTP code is 200, so there's no, we don't need to specify any HTTP code over here. So let's go to Postman. Then go over to Postman, create a new request, come over here, just copy this, bring it over here, then paste. Change this to post, change this one to sign in, and come over here, copy the body, come over here to the body should be raw and the format should be JSON, and then paste it in here. Let's send this request once, and then we have our token. So we are signed in. So if you try to sign in with a user that is not created, let's say please, and then we get invalid credentials. Okay, this is the username is incorrect, but we don't want to tell them that the username is incorrect. We just want to tell them invalid credentials. So if a user is trying to use another person's username or password, you should know which one is incorrect, then they should try to find a way out. If the user is trying to log in, the user should find a way out. And if you remove this hitch and then send this request, you also have invalid credentials because this password is wrong. But then when you bring this hitch back and then you send, you have a valid token. Great. So now we've seen how we can sign in. We basically have seen how we can sign in and then sign up. So this is basically the logic. So a basic recap on what we've done so far. Okay. So in our auth controller here, we injected this auth service, and then this auth controller depends on this auth service. So now we are using this auth service to pass in the user to the sign up method of the auth service to create a user in the database, and in the sign in, we're also passing in the user to the sign in method of the auth service to create a user in the database. And if you come over to the auth service here, what we are basically doing is in the sign up, we injected Prisma and JWT. Now in here, we're using Prisma to find a user in our database. And if there's a user in our database with this username, you can't sign up with the same username twice. So we tell the user with username also already exists. And then, but if there's no user, we sign up with that username, and then we hash their password and then create a new user in our database, sign a new token, send to the client. So if you want to also sign in, say pass in a user, accept the user as a parameter, and we use this user to find the unique user with their username, because in our Prisma schema here, we marked this username as unique. So we find the user with their username, and if a user doesn't exist, we say invalid credentials. We don't have that user in our database. So basically, you are trying to log in with the wrong username or password. But if a user exists, we check the password. Is the password correct? Yes. Is the password is sending the same with the one in the database? If it is, and then we say, okay, let's sign a token and send to the client. But if the password is incorrect, you say invalid credentials. Okay, but if it's correct, you sign a token with the user ID and then send to the client. So in their subsequent requests, if they want to access anything in the main route, they will have to send the token along with their request. Okay, so how do we go about this? Now, how do we grab the token? Now we need a middleware to do this, to grab the token from the request and then make use of it. But because Nest has a different way of doing things, we don't need to go ahead. We can implement a middleware to handle that for us. But Nest has a way of doing. We are using passport for authentication, and it's the passport. We've also installed the passport JWT package that can handle this under the hood for us. So all we need to do is to create a file name here called JWT strategy in our auth service. In our auth module, we come over here and say strategy.ts. Okay, and inside of this file, all we need to do is to say, okay, this is injectable. You can inject it and then use it elsewhere. So as far as this is injectable, let's export a class of JWT. This JWT, okay, JWT strategy. Okay, let's see, it's a strategy like this, and then we extend this. We extend the passport strategy. Where's the passport strategy? From passport strategy, and it's coming from NestJS passport, the package we installed earlier. So this passport strategy itself is a class, and it will take strategy, and the strategy is coming from passport JWT. And then the strategy will be of J. If you have here a string, this strategy can be of any. You have a strategy of JWT. And in this class, what do we want to do in this class? So we bring in Prisma because we want to use Prisma to do some certain things. We have our constructor, and inside of this constructor, we will initialize Prisma, say private, and then say Prisma. So Prisma is our Prisma service, not Prisma client, Prisma service like this. Okay, so now we have Prisma, but then we've not satisfied this passport strategy class. So we're getting an error here. So let's open this curly braces here, and then we say JWT from request. So the JWT from request, we say extract JWT dot from where are we extracting it from auth header as bearer token, and this is the method. Okay, we're extracting JWT from auth header as bearer token. You know, when we were building this without using Nest, we had to do something that we check the header, we check if it has a token, and then we extract the token. But this is basically handling that for us. So before this, we extract the bearer token from the header. It will basically do all the checks for us before extracting it. So we have ignore. We have another one, ignore expiration, and we set it to false. So if it is expired, basically the user is unauthorized. Okay, we shouldn't ignore that. And then we have secret key, the secret key, because when checking for the headers and then decrypting the token, it also needs the key that we use to encrypt that token. So we say process env, and then we say JWT secret like this. Okay. So getting an error. This is the super, because all these are inherited from this passport strategy. So when I get an error, it's the super, we'll call the super, and then we pass all of it inside, and then the error is gone. So this time around, it should be a comma because this is an object. A comma, and this one also. JWT secret, and not secret like this. Okay. So now that we've initialized this with all of this, so what else do we need? We need to validate the payload and then add it to the request. So all we need to do here is we say it has a method that you can call async validate. And then inside of this validate, it takes the payload. That's the incoming payload from the token you just validated. And then we added in our out service, as you can see, what we are sending back is the ID in the token. So we'll just grab the ID, and the ID is of type string. So while we grab the ID from here, okay, what do we want to do? We want to basically say, we want to use that user and then grab the user's info from the database. So we say const user is equal to await this Prisma user find unique, and then we'll say where ID is payload. Okay, we've gotten the ID from the payload. You can see, I'll just leave it like this. ID. Let's try and put it. We're getting an error here. It's saying payload, but its value is never read. Okay. Let's see, ID is of payload dot ID. Okay. So now we're trying to get this user from the database using the user's ID, because you know the ID also is a unique key, as far as good as the username also is it's a unique key. So all we need to do now is we've gotten the user. Now we try to find the user in the database using the user's ID, and then together we also select some things. We don't want to return everything. We just want to return the ID true, username true, created at, this is true, updated at true, and then the notes. So we want to return the user's ID, username created at, updated, and the user's note. So if there's no user, if we don't find the user without giving ID, if there's no user without giving ID in our database, we throw a new unauthorized exception. So the message is basically unauthorized, so we don't need to add any message to it. But if there's a user, we don't need to throw this, we basically return the user. So under the hood, this is adding this user to the request. And if you hover over this user, you can see that you have the ID username created and then the note ID created at the user ID. So under the hood, this is basically adding this user to the request. So now we head back to the main route. We head back to the main route. So how do we use the JWT strategy? Heading back to the main route, we will use this JWT strategy to implement the main route. So if you go back to the main route, now we have service here, the main route. So what basically is the main route expecting? The main route is expecting only the ID. The ID, which is of type string. Okay, the ID is of type string, and then it will return a user. Or you can say it is expecting a complete user. You can say it is expecting a complete user. And then you see Prisma. You can see user from Prisma client. But then you can say, if you say user, if you hover over this user, you can see ID, username, password, created that, updated that. Okay, so this is not what we want. What we want is you can come over here. You can see in the interfaces, or let's just do it here. You can see type I user is equal to user. And in here you see nodes of type nodes coming from Prisma client as well, because all these types have been generated by Prisma, so we don't need to write it by ourselves. They've been generated. Okay, if you hover over them, you have ID created that. Okay, so the main thing in the nodes, we forgot to, we completely left them out. We have the title of the node, which is a string title, which is a string. And then the content of the node, which is also a string like this. So we stop our app and we say npx migrate, npx prisma migrate, and then we say add title and content to nodes like this, hit enter. And if you open your migrations, you see that all the migrations have been applied. Now, if you go back to our auth service, now you hover over the nodes. Now you can see, if you hover over these nodes, you can see ID node. You have ID, title, content created. That's great. That is what we want. And then you have this user. And this user here, you can see omit, because we don't want to send, if you hover over this user here, this user has, let's just leave the omit first. If you hover over this user, you can see that user, there's a password included. We don't want to include the password. So you know what the omit does. We want to omit the password from the user. See, omit user, then we say password like this. And then instead of saying, okay, what we're expecting here is a user, it's an I user like this. Now, if you hover over this I user, you can see the omit password, not okay. We're omitting the password. So when by the time we get back the user, there will be no password there. So this user is coming from this strategy here. Where is the strategy? JWT strategy. So this is where it is coming from. So now we go to our main route. So how do we finalize our main route? Okay, basically, how we do our main route is we simply return user like this. This is all we do. We simply return user. Or we can say simply return user as an object, so that it can be something like this. Okay, so now we start npm run start dev. Okay, let's head over to this place and let's sign in once more. Okay, so we've got a new token. Let's copy the, okay, let's first of all add a okay, before I continue, Timothy, NestJS abstraction makes things more complex. Okay, are you sure? But they make life easier for you. Okay, let's add, copy this, and then bring it over here. Add it here, and then say auth sign. And this is a get request. So, but then if you send this, we have a main here. Okay, because we have not added this main to the controllers. Okay. Now we have not added this service to the controllers. So if you head over to the controllers, we have this main route right here. Okay, so in the main route, all you need to do is we'll have a request. This is coming from NestJS common. The request with a request, have a request here, which is a request coming from Express like this. Okay, this is a request coming from Express, and this request, what are we returning? We are returning to, okay, let's move. Basically, let's leave the return type first. So all we need to do here now is say const user is equal to, let's say, request as any. We'll take care of this any later on, but for now, let's leave it as any dot user like this. And then what we need to do is we see can basically return the user here. We can basically see return user here. And then we come over here. We don't even need service for this. We can just come over here and then do away with this service. Where is this? Where is the main route? We can just do away with this like this. We don't need it. Come over here and then remove this. Take this, bring it to the auth controller. And then we are returning a user. So here we are expected to return. Let's just leave this one in here, the iUser in here, and then import this from Prisma client, and this one also from Prisma client. Okay, you may be asking why we are doing this here, because if you hover over the user, this type doesn't have the notes included, but we want our iUser to have notes included. So this is the way we can have our notes included. So we add the notes to this user, then we omit the password and then add the notes to this user. So if we come over here, we now have our user. And then we see this is a promise. Is this a promise? Does it need to be a promise? User requests. Okay, this is a promise basically that returns an I user like this. And then this is saying, okay, the user here is not an I user. So the user does not use one type I user. Okay. I user here we have return user, and the error will go away. This is basically, so now we are getting the user with, once the user is authenticated, once they send a request, the request will come in with their token. So then let's send this, let's come over here, do away with this. Now we don't have any errors. Let's send this request once more. Okay, we don't have anything right here. /me. Okay, the reason why we don't have anything right here is because we are not using this the strategy we just created. We're not using the strategy. So how do we use this strategy we just created? We need to create a guard that will use that strategy. So in our previous class, basically, we did not AWT strategy. Okay, we did not learn about guards. So let's move over to this place here. Then you say NestJS. And here you create okay, so now we have the overview. Let's go to this overview. We have guards. Now, if you click on guards, you see a guard is a class annotated with injectable decorator which implements the can active interface. So come over, guards have a single responsibility. So they determine whether a given request will be handled by the route handler or not, depending on certain conditions like permissions, roles, SL, etc. present at runtime. This is often referred to as authorization. Great. So authorization, and it's causing authentication, with which it usually collaborates, has typically been handled by middleware in traditional Express application. Good. This is also explained here. So we don't need to use the middleware. We just use the guard to implement it. So middleware is a fine choice for authentication since things like token validation and attaching properties to the request objects are not strongly connected with a particular route context and its metadata. And all of but middleware by its nature, it's dumb. It doesn't know which handler will be executed after calling the next function. So on the other hand, guards have access to the execution context instance and all of that. So you can come over here and then read about guards and all of this, blah, 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 blah. So we'll come over here and then we'll create, instead of this alt folder, we'll create another file, which we call alt guard ts. And inside of this alt guard, what we'll do is we'll make it injectable. We'll make it injectable, then we'll export the class of JWT alt guard, and then it will extend alt guard, extends alt guard, which will be coming from NestJS passport. So now this alt guard will take JWT. The type is JWT because this is the strategy we are basically using in our app. And then the body here will be basically empty. So how do we use this guard? Now, if you read the guard, you know it handles or take care of all this authorization and authentication, handling middlewares and all of that. So if you come to the controllers, you can basically use this guard in your app to handle authenticated route. So if you come to our controller here, we have the main route. I think this is basically the only route and the sign out route. So in this sign out route, all we need to do is return, I think, return token. No. So there'll be no token. So once there's no token, once you make a request, a GET request to this sign out, it will return the token of no, and you cannot be able to make subsequent requests. So all you need to do now is use the guard. So how do we use this guard? You come over here and you say at use guards. So which guards do you want to use? This is the JWT auth. Is it JWT auth guard? I named it. Yes, JWT auth guard. Okay, so a user must be signed in before they can sign out. So basically, you can just add this here for just demonstration purposes. Use guards, and then you see JWT auth guard as well. So let's make this request once more and see what we got. Internal server error, and then what is the error saying? Unknown authentication strategy JWT. Okay, so it's saying unknown authentication strategy JWT. So basically, what is happening? Okay, app module here we have Prisma module, auth module. Okay, so in our the app module and in our auth module, we have Prisma module, passport module, JWT module. So what are we missing out? Why we're getting these errors? Okay, so in here, this is basically a service. This here is basically a service that we can inject and then use in our module. So this is where we are leaving it out. So if you come to our auth module here, in our providers, we need to include JWT strategy. Okay, so what is the error saying again? Requires a secret or key. The strategy here requires a secret or key. Stop and start the app. Maybe the error will go away. Okay, this error is still here. JWT strategy. The secret key here is processed in with JWT secrets. Okay, request a secret or key. Okay. The auth module, we have process env JWT secrets. Okay. So why the error? Strategy process env JWT secrets. Okay, let's see if the error is actually, let's copy this one. Then bring it up module. Okay, strategy, JWT strategy. And then add it here. Instead of this, you can see this. Okay, the error is still here. It's module passport to JWT. Okay. Why this error right now? JWT strategy request is secret or key. Okay. Okay, it's not secret key, secret or key. Secret or key. You have process env JWT secret. Okay, it is secret or key, not secret key. Okay, now we don't have that error anymore. So we can come over here and then make this request. Then we have unauthorized. Okay, let's come over here, sign in, grab this token, then bring it over here in the authorized. Now, as you can see, we're not signed in with it is unauthorized because we're not sending this request. We're not making this request along with the auth token. So you can come to authorization, come to bearer token, and then come over here, remove this, add this new token, then send this request once more. Okay, so right now, you guys, as you can see, we have a user with ID, username, created, updated, and notes. We don't have the password. As you can see, we don't have the password only, and the user doesn't have any notes. So this is basically, we've completed our authentication, and then we can come over here. Let's assume we're on the client. And then if you make a request, come over here, copy this one, paste it. This is a sign out. Now, if you make this request unauthorized, because the token, you need that token, Copy this, bring it in. Let's assume you are signed in, and then authorization, bearer token, come over here, copy everything. Oops. Did you copy that? Copy the token like this. Come over here, do away with this, then paste in the token and send this request. And then the token is null. So now on the client, what they'll basically do is when you make a request to this route, when the token is null, you set the token to be null and then store it in the local storage. So then your subsequent request, you'll be sending null and then you won't be authorized. So that is basically the implementation. Okay, so now we've seen how we can implement authorization and authentication with Passport in Express.js. So what we're basically using here, we're using the JWT strategy, and then we're bringing out the ID from the payload, and then we're finding the user from the database with all of these. So while finding the user, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now we can come over here to the auth controller. Then we don't even need to specify this. We can say user, because user, and like I'm basically leave this thing like this. Because in here, what we're doing in the JWT strategy here, we're not selecting the password. So the password is not necessary, even though we're not omitting it, nothing will happen. So if you come over to this place and then you make this request again, you still have the same user with the ID username created, that updated, and notes. So if you come over here, we just want to include the notes to the user. Okay, but if you do away with this, okay, type iUser is equal to user, promise iUser, and then if you come over here and then make this request, okay, iUser is the okay. It's like the type is not being applied. Okay, you can say user as iUser like this. Okay, like this, and then you make this request once more. Okay. You can make this an object. User, return user, and then type string this. So obviously try not to, and user does not even type ID. Okay. So we can leave this as user, but because this user is coming from the request and it has okay, I guess we should just leave it like this. Like this. As iUser, yes, this user has the notes and everything. Or you can completely remove this since it is being handled. And let's do away with this. Then do away with this one as well. Since it is being handled in our strategy, just select all of this with the notes. So if it doesn't make any difference, to send this request, we have the user and everything will be notes. So you can go ahead and then create other users and then add to your app. Okay, so we don't have any interfaces, but we have a detail of sign in user. And oops, let me basically change this to sign up. The name is sign up and the name of the file is sign in. Change this. Then let's come over to where are we using this? The controller is the service. Sign up. It's working, but then tsconfig file is throwing an error. Start and stop and start your app. It will work. Okay, so this is the flow of the app. First of all, in the main tiers, we have this. Okay, let's just explicitly specify that we're using Express NestJS application like this, so that our app will know that, okay, we're using the NestJS application. So we have our main, and as you can see, our main here is using the app module to bring together all the modules we've created in our app. It's using the app module. As you can see, we have the app module right here. So the app module is importing Prisma module and then the auth module, because this is basically the two modules that we're using for now, the auth module and then the Prisma module. So we have the Prisma module here, which has the providers of service. It's also exports Prisma service so that we can use this in other modules as well. And then this is the Prisma service. Once this module is initialized, we connect to the Prisma client. Now coming over here, in our auth module, we have our auth module, which has a lot of things. We have the Prisma module, the passport module coming from the NestJS passport, and then we have the JWT module, which is also coming from the JWT module coming from the NestJS JWT. So we register this and then we pass in the secrets and then the sign options, which expires in 7, or taking expires in 7 days. And then the controllers will have the auth controller. In our services, we have the JWT strategy, which is also a service we are using to check as our middleware to check for validation of the user, if the user is authenticated or not. And then we said not authorized, basically. So since this is an async method, you can basically do something like try catch, so you can handle errors, but then it is automatically handled by NestJS. So in the service here, this is where every logic comes in. We've injected Prisma from the Prisma service. And then if you come to the auth modules, we are importing Prisma module, because in here we also specified that we can use that in other modules as well. So we exported it. Where is the Prisma? We exported this Prisma service from this module. So once we import this module, the service is exported. So we can come in here in the auth module and then import this Prisma module, so we can use it to create users and then sign in users in our auth service. Also have all of these, the controllers and then the JWT strategy. And in our auth service, for now, is using the Prisma service and the JWT service. This JWT service is coming from NestJS JWT. So if you want to sign up user, we grab the user as a parameter, and then we sign up the user and then return a token to the client. So this is basically the logic for signing users, and then signing up user, and another logic here for signing in users. So once we sign in, we return a token, and then it's subsequent to get user details. Once the user is signed in, they make a subsequent request to the new route, and then the new route, we have the new route contains the user details. So once you make a request to the new route, you grab the user from the incoming request, and then we send it back to the client. So the incoming requests, you can make this thing an object like this, so that it will look more nice. If you send this request, we have the user, and then the user is this great. We have the user, and then the user is that is great. Okay, now we have this. So if you're wondering where this request is coming from, what this JWT strategy does is that once it grabs this, once it extracts the token from auth header bearer token, what it does is it will bring back the payload. The payload contains an ID of string. So we grab that ID and then we check if the user exists in the database. And if the user exists, we then grab the user's ID, username created, updated, and user's note. But if the user doesn't exist, that means something happened or something like that. We throw an unauthorized exception. But if they exist, and then we return the user to the client. We attach the user to the request method, the request object. So once we attach the user to the request object, we can come over to our controllers and then use the guards, and then use the JWT auth guard to grab the user from this request object. The user is attached to the request, so we grab the user from this request object and then send the user back to the client. That's the reason why we're using use guards, because we're using this guard, the JWT auth guard, which is here, JWT auth guard, which extends auth guard, and then is also using the JWT. Grab it here, then grab the user from the request and then send it back to the client. So that is basically it. And I must say, we've done a lot. We've come to the, we've implemented almost half of our app. And if you try to open our database, we don't have anything there. Okay, so now if you try to add, let's say npx Prisma Studio, hit enter, and then Prisma Studio is the okay, no, not here, we'll cd 11 nest, and then we'll say nps Prisma Studio. Okay, so now Prisma Studio will pop up, and then we'll see that we have about, okay, we have 3 users, because the ones I created, this one, no validation. We enable validation in our coming class. And then this one I also created, so we can go ahead and delete these users. And then we refresh. We no longer have these users in our database. But then the first user has an ID, the crystal, and then the password. Look at the password right here. Okay, then we created that, updated, and then the notes. Okay, so this is basically it for today. So in today's class, we've learned how to authenticate in NestJS. And then we created also the guard to handle authorization and ensure a user is also authenticated. So basically, we've come to the end of today's class. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask.